A lot of icebreakers get stuck at trivia, like random facts, favorite foods, best movies, and they're not that interesting. In fact, nobody likes to answer them, much less listen to the answers. So a meaningful icebreaker is something that digs below the surface and allows people to actually tell a story in a way that connects people to each other. So in this video, I'm going to share 4 meaningful icebreakers that makes it easy for people to storytell so that those connections can be made. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been facilitating for 20 odd years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops, and community conversations. Now I help other trainers and facilitators do that well. Great icebreakers are things that give people enough focus to provide direction, but enough scope that they can choose what they want to talk about. It's all about encouraging people to be vulnerable, but only at a pace that works for them. So in this video, I'm sharing 4 prompts that help people open up and share stories about themselves, but in a way that feels comfortable or just uncomfortable enough to warm them up. The first activity is called significant numbers, and this is a really useful prompt if you're wanting people to share about their experience in the industry or the sector or the area that you're talking about, but you just don't want to leave it wide open. So if you say to someone, tell me about your experience in leadership, that doesn't give them much direction, and people can go in all sorts of different places. What significant numbers does is gives people a chance to think about their experience through the lens of numbers. So what I do is I give people a couple of minutes on their own with a marker pen and a pad of Post-its and just jot out their story using numbers alone. Then I invite them to share that story with a partner or maybe in a group of 3 before popcorning some of the more relevant things back into the group. So for example, my story by numbers looks a little bit like this. So 20 plus years experience in facilitation in all sorts of different contexts. I'm delivering or I'm at the front of the room about 3 days a week, 3 out of 7. And I'm working with groups between 6 people and 500, actually more like 1,000, depending on where I am. My favorite size group to work with is 50 plus. The bigger, the better. But the thing that really lights my fire now is the Facilitators Network, which is a network of 160 trainers and facilitators who all want to connect, learn, and grow together. So by writing the numbers down, it keeps people sharing concise. They know where the story's going, but you actually get a lot of information about the experience they bring to the room. The second activity uses Lego. Everyone likes a little piece of Lego, right? And the invitation is simply to build a model to represent what's going on in your life right now. Now, I don't pull this activity out in every context, but I often use it when I'm working with teams who perhaps are in all shapes of awful. There's not a lot of trust between each other, and actually they need to start seeing each other as humans. And the invitation is to build a model about what's going on in your life, not just what's going on at work. Now, I usually set the scene by sharing my own model, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be something simple like this. And you can make the bricks mean anything. So I might say this side here represents my business, and the green represents that it's growing rapidly. We've got turbocharged. We've got all sorts of doors of opportunities opening. And on this side is just plain blue sailing. Personal life is good. No one is drowning here. I tend to tell a story that sets the scene for the vulnerability that I'm looking for. And so you've got to be mindful of the energy that's already in the room. Now, sometimes when I lead this activity, there's a little bit of perhaps confusion or hesitation around how do I build a model to represent my life. So it's important to share with people it doesn't have to be literal. There is metaphorical meanings to each of the blocks. So if people are unfamiliar with this concept, I might start with an easier activity, which is simply choose a block or choose a piece of Lego that represents what you want to get out of today's workshop. So people might say, I've chosen the duck because I'd really like us to get all our ducks in a row. Or I've chosen the elephant because I reckon there's an elephant in the room that needs to be talked about. Or maybe just wheels. I'd like to get the wheels turning. Once people get the idea that the block or the piece of Lego can represent anything, it's much easier for people to build their model. Now, when I share this idea with new trainers and facilitators, there's sometimes a little bit of resistance. I work with senior leaders, or I work with elected members, or I work with in a corporate setting. They are not going to want to use Lego. But trust me, every time I lay Lego on the table, people walk into the room and they're like kids again. As long as you tie the activity to the purpose of the session and you're really clear about what you're trying to achieve, people love getting their hands on a little bit of play. Activity 3 is really simple and doesn't require any props. It's as simple as share the story of your name. Or to make it a little wider, share a story of your name. Now, what I like about this is that everybody has a name. And to begin with, not everyone thinks they've got a story, but give them 30 seconds or so and they'll come up with something. So for example, the story of my name, when my mum was pregnant, my older brother used to lie on her tummy and say, "Hello, Kerry." So apparently, whether I was a boy or a girl, I was always going to be called Kerry. So I don't know the meaning of my name, but I have a story attached to how I was named. What's really cool about this activity is once you hear a story about someone's name, you will never forget that person's name. It's embedded in your mind. Activity 4 is such a cool prompt. It is quite simply this: share a story from your keyring. And you might look at this bunch of keys and think, what story could I possibly tell from this? But there is always something that bubbles up. And people get to choose how vulnerable they want to be. For example, I've been in a workshop where a woman shared her car key and said, I've been in an abusive relationship for 20 years and I've recently left. This car key represents the first thing I've ever bought with my own money. This was in a senior leadership team and the rest of the team didn't know that about her. It opened up a whole other level of trust and relationship that didn't exist before. I've had someone share that this is the key to my auntie's flat. She has early onset dementia and I'm really worried that one day I'm going to let myself in to check on her and she's not going to know who I am. So really vulnerable stories come from those key rings. But equally, people can keep it a little lighter if they want to. I've lost count of the times that people have shared gym membership tags and said, this looks like a gym membership, but it's actually just a really expensive key ring because I've never actually made it to the gym. So lots of stories attached to a simple bunch of keys. People can choose to go in whatever direction they choose. So here's the thing about those 4 activities is that they all use a prop of some sort to start the conversation going. And using props for connection activities can be really useful because not only do they give people something to fiddle with, it provides a focus for the conversation. In my next video, Meaningful Icebreaker Activities, I share 4 more icebreaker activities that use the humble phone as the prop. It's a great connection tool that usually we ask people to put away. This time I'm asking them to bring it out. You can find the link in the description below. Go check them out.